Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. So it was announced today, Jimmy Butler is, I think we got some news on this. Jimmy Butler is going to be part of a Netflix TV show that's going to come out. It premieres on October 9th, and it's called Starting Five. And it looks like it's something in the ilk of like Netflix's Quarterback or Receiver. I'm a sucker for this stuff. I love behind-the-scenes sports stuff. I'm a big Hard Knocks fan. So this looks like something that will be fun for a basketball fan to check out, but particularly as a Heat fan, because it's going to follow Jimmy Butler and everything that he went behind. And obviously it's an eventful season for Jimmy in which, you know, he finished playing 60 games last year. And I think it's a season the Heat fan kind of wants some answers from Jimmy Butler. And I'm curious. I'll say this. It's produced by LeBron James, and I don't know how much, I don't know like how much control Jimmy's people have over like what gets out and whatnot. But I definitely think it's a fascinating watch for the Heat fan and to get some insight, because when this lineup was first revealed, it's Jason Tatum, it's LeBron James, it is Anthony Edwards, it's Edwards and Sabonis, and it's Jimmy Butler. And my first reaction was, with LeBron producing it. And my first reaction was, man, the people that I'm going to be most interested in this show, obviously is going to be Jimmy because I'm a Heat fan, but also he's got a lot of interesting stuff on and off the court. And then Anthony Edwards. Like, those are the personalities I feel like I'm going to be most interested in seeing. Tatum's a dud. I don't know what's going to, maybe I'll learn more about Tatum that I find fascinating. I doubt it. And same with Sabonis. And then LeBron, it's LeBron's production. Like, you know, they're going to say, this is LeBron and all the stuff that he does to keep going at the age that he's going. Here's this is from NBA.com, the synopsis. It says, Starting Five, a new 10-part documentary series on Netflix, provides an intense behind-the-scenes look at the 23-24 season through the eyes of five of the league's best players, Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, Edwards and Sabonis, and Jason Tatum. The series captures their battles on and off the court as they chase greatness, push through injuries, and balance the demands of family and legacy. James pushes himself harder than ever to stay healthy, dominant in his 21st season, while Edwards electrifies his rapid rise. Butler's relentless drive to propel the Heat. Sabonis anchors the Kings with his versatile play, and Tatum leads the Celtics on the quest for their 18th championship, which I can already tell, like the ending. I'm not going to love this documentary. But I think and also Peyton Manning, I guess, is one of the producers of this as well. So I think for the Heat fan, the thing that you're going to want to see, I think it's going to be cool because, look, Jimmy Butler is a very interesting dude. He's obviously got a lot of things off the court that interest him, between the Big Face Coffee, the country album, the interest and mingling with other stars that are outside of basketball. All that stuff is going to be really cool. I mean, Jimmy gives you some of a glimpse of it on social media, but I do think it's going to be really cool to see him. I also am interested to see what kind of insight they give into the demands that are on his body. Like, what are the things we're going to learn about what Jimmy Butler was pushing through last year or not pushing through enough? What are going to be the things that are the Heat fan? What is the Heat fan going to learn from this about Jimmy Butler that has last year? Is it either going to give you the goosies? Because I'm sure this is going to end with Jimmy Butler playing through a torn MCL and, trying to get his team into a better seed in the playoffs and end up falling short of. Or is it going to be annoying to the Heat fan because they're going to be like, here's Jimmy Butler doing a gazillion things off the court and we don't see enough basketball commitment? Like, what is going to be the avenue that the Heat fan learns something from Jimmy Butler? Who, look, in my mind, I know there's a lot of Heat fans who are annoyed with Jimmy Butler, and there's even some ingrates who want to move rats off a ship off Jimmy Butler and are tired of the antics. I'm not. I'm appreciative of Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler. I love rooting for Jimmy Butler. And I'm hopeful that this is definitely a year that he is healthier and plays at least into the high 60s. And I'm not even going to be greedy and say 70 because that just hasn't been his Heat career. But I'm hoping he can at least be in like the 66, 67 margin. More than he had last year, and really gives, full tilt effort. I don't know what the contract is going to be part of it, and it will be interesting. I wonder if I don't know what this goes into the postseason. It sounds like it's just more of an in-season thing. if we'll get any insight into that as well. I doubt it. But I think the things that I definitely want a look behind the scenes at with Jimmy are the physical day-to-day stuff, what he's dealing with. And then, the fun stuff off the court is going to be something too. And I wonder if that'll put last year into a different perspective for the Miami Heat fan, or maybe they don't care anymore. Maybe like after the way that last season ended, they're sick of the shenanigans, they're sick of the nonsense, and they just want to see him out on the court and go play basketball. But look, that never deters me. I'm going to watch it either way because, I like seeing what happens there and what you can get the goosies over and whatnot and see where that's at. So be a fascinating thing to see. Speaking of fascinating, this went viral yesterday in the world of Heatland. Hassan Whiteside did an interview with UD on the OGs, and I like the OGs podcast. I like the fact that guys can go onto that podcast and shoot the bleep a little bit. And he had even said in the start of it, it's his first podcast ever. And Udonis Haslem's not going to be a guy who's going to badger his guests, right? Like he's not going to be a guy who's going to bring up the stuff that's meaty with some players. And there's been really good stuff that's come out of this stuff before, like the Goran Dragic talking about Pat Riley stuff and all that. So overall, it's like a 9 out of 10 for me as far as like great listening. I enjoyed the holy hell out of, I got an hour drive home at the very least every single day. Enjoyed the holy hell out of listening to the podcast. But yesterday he was telling this story about I was willing to take less money to get Kevin Durant, which maybe was the case. We know that Kevin Durant had a meeting with the Miami Heat in the summer of 16-17, right? And Hassan Whiteside ends up signing that monster deal. He signs for $100 million basically. Signs it at midnight. No real drama to it. Hassan Whiteside, look, incredible story. Incredible story to go from playing in Lebanon and playing in China and ending up with a $100 million deal after you were a second-round pick, cut, cast off. A lot of stuff about the Hassan Whiteside story is really, really cool. The thing that I would have liked on the podcast, which I don't know that Udonis Haslem, this is kind of one of those things, Stephen A. Smith was talking to him about this on his podcast where he was saying, like, you're a star. You're going to have to pick. You may have to pick, like, what do you want to be, a big media star, or do you want to be a Heat lifer? I think Udonis Haslem's done a good job at towing the line. When he hasn't, you've heard the displeasure from Pat Riley about it, but Udonis Haslem is, I think, as captivating a basketball personality as there is out there. Like, I really, for a space that's not going to have Charles Barkley in a couple of years, I think Udonis Haslem could be, that dude when it comes to this space. But he's a very thoughtful guy, and he really cares about these people. I remember when I was at BAM's foundation last year, UD was kind enough to give me a few minutes, and he talked about the Damian Lillard stuff, and he even said in his answer, he goes, this is a little sensitive for me because I care about Tyler Hero a lot, and I do check on Tyler Hero and how his mental health's doing with all this stuff. So I don't suggest that Udonis Haslem and Mike Miller are the guys to get you the dirt necessarily on the Heat, but it is really good to hear the good stories, the locker room stories. But I think the one thing I would have said that I missed out of this interview that I would have liked is, and maybe they talked about it and cut it, I don't know. But the one thing that I would have liked is, like, what was the relationship like with Eric Spoelstra? Like, they alluded to Spo a few times in the interview, but we never really got, hey, what was because Hassan Whiteside is the rare guy who, like, left the Heat on, like, really bad terms, like when it left, there's not been many guys who have left, Dion, there's been maybe more of it as of late, but like a lot of the times, like there's been some icy feelings, frosty feelings, but they normally warm back up again. But there was like public upset with the franchise at the time, back and forth with the media about, there are a lot of teams that could use a center, not happy with his role. I would have liked to hear his side on that, if anything. But the Kevin Durant thing, maybe the KD thing maybe he'll end up, in Miami this year demanding a trade or something like that. Maybe that things do go really south with the Phoenix Suns. It's weird that there's already fodder that's kind of already out there about that. But the one thing that was kind of missing on that, because he had said that, well, imagine we would have had a team with D Wade, Goran, me, Chris Bosh, KD. And the timeline's a little bit mixed up because, you have Chris Bosh, who had just lost his second straight season to the blood clots. Then you had the Heat not passing him for camp the next year. And then it kind of got, edgy between Bosh and the Heat and about clearing him. And they had a doctor, but they didn't. And then they thought that they were just trying to clear cap space and get his big number off the book because they didn't think they could contend with him. You had that looming over it. And then you also had the D Wade contract dispute. He ends up leaving and going to the Chicago Bulls. So the timeline was a little bit wonky on it because it was always this thing of like, the Heat have this meeting with Kevin Durant, but they also had not the D Wade thing locked up either. So that was a little bit weird listening back. I'm like, oh yeah, but it wasn't like, oh, hey, yeah, Hassan, can you finagle a little bit and we're going to have this uber super team? Like, no, there were a lot of other obstacles that were there. When you look back at like Kevin Durant's legacy of like what team should he have gone to, obviously with the cap spiking the way that it did, remember that was a summer with a lot of crazy money was spent all around. Obviously, he made the right choice in going to Golden State because you're adding on to a 73-win team. But I was like, I don't remember it like that. Like we just needed Hassan to take a little less, and the Heat had a real shot at Kevin Durant. I remember them saying, like, the reporting out of it, I think, from, like, Levitar was like, oh, yeah, like, Kevin Durant was really impressed with Eric Spoelstra and all that. But also, like, D-Wade and the Heat were in this very public back and forth, very personal back and forth because D-Wade was, like, on Snapchat, and he wasn't getting his money, and they were paying Hassan Whiteside right at midnight, and they weren't treating D-Wade like a priority. And that ends up with him going to the Chicago Bulls, and the Heat end up having this, very weird season the next year where they look like they should go in the tank, and then they flip the record on its head. And then D-Wade ends up coming back the next year after starting the year in Cleveland. But I was like, that was kind of the most viral clip that came out of that podcast. I was like, yeah, but there were some other elements there to finagle in there, not just, Hassan Whiteside take a little less. They might have gotten Kevin Durant. They didn't seem like they were very close to Kevin Durant. And also, he wouldn't have been teaming up with Dwayne Wade, who left, and Chris Bosh, who couldn't play basketball anymore. So some deets were a little bit off on that one. But overall, love the podcast. Very, very entertaining.